Well, this has been a long time coming. Back in the saddle with Desi Rivera. So excited, dude. So excited. Let's get
Yes,
into
sir.
it with Desi as soon as we get back. Welcome to the Top Agent Podcast, where we bring you raw and unedited content to help create and connect top agents from across the globe. I'm your host, Tom Tillier. Let's get started. I tell you what, it's been a while, Desi.
It has been, young Tomas.
It's fun talking to you, but it's more fun seeing you when I'm talking to you.
We talk quite a bit,
Yeah, I know it.
which is awesome,
And
man.
that's why I thought it was important to have you on here because, we're kind of restructuring the format of Top Agent.
Okay.
Really trying to understand what we can do better to help serve agents more.
Mhm.
And this is our community. This is our, people outsiders think that we're in competition. Well, it's always, we're always competitive in nature, but
Yeah,
more so it's a collaboration when you have agents working together and it works a lot better.
100%.
And I know you think that way. And that's why
100%.
I wanted to get you on to have some conversations, see what we can do to kind of extend the conversation that we had the other day. What are you doing different? How are you affected by the changing market? Kind of what your team's doing, what you and your team are doing to address this. And yeah, let's kind of
Sure.
going. It's kind of
Yeah.
where we go. But before we start that,
Okay. I was gonna say, come on, give it to me.
I'm back, baby. I'm back. I'm back.
We haven't done that in quite some time.
No, I thought about that today. I was like, man, this is reminiscent. All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've ever been given. Okay. Uh, It's not gonna fit exactly, but here you go. I've always been told that I've always been an old soul. So what I've always done, and I've always kind of paid attention to, is when elders speak, I listen, right? Because ironically enough, right, when you listen to them speak, since the dawn of time, the earth is gonna, implode, everything's going to pot, doom and gloom, blah 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 blah. So, you know, you learn from your elders. And there's an expression in Spanish that says, "Where I am today, one day you will be."
So are you
So,
saying doom and gloom?
no, not doom and gloom, but it's just kind of funny that, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, this is horrible and this is going to happen. All that doom and gloom, all these scare tactics that we have today in this environment has existed probably, since the dawn of time. But I've heard it from people in the past. You're hearing it today, yet we're still here, thankfully, striving and surviving. But that paying attention and understanding history and getting it from people who have experienced it, right? Which will kind of fall into our conversation today. Success leaves breadcrumbs. So understanding how to handle something in life from someone who's gone through it, there's something to it.
I do believe that's true. I think it's also important that who the elders you're listening to are the people that you aspire to be ultimately, instead
Yeah.
of the
Yep.
ones that, yeah, there's a lot of
Well,
different.
you learn from their mistakes. I'll give you an example. My
True.
father-in-law always regretted the fact that when he was starting his business in New York City, someone offered him an entire tenement building as collateral, and he didn't take it. And he always regretted that, and he always said, I was a fool for not doing it, but fear held me back. So once again, you can learn from those mistakes when an opportunity like that knocks. Like, don't be fearful. The only way you're going to learn is by going through it and moving forward.
Yeah, I would say we're all learning a lot in these last few
Yes.
years. Obviously, getting through COVID, kind of what the precursor to that was, like where we were before that, and now where we are after that. And I think it's a one big learning curve, right?
It has been.
And now we're in a position now where it's you can't even open up your Facebook feed without seeing negativity, and
Yeah.
everything's negative, whether it's politics or it's our business, and all the connect agents we're connected to, and now the whole buyer agent compensation thing. It's all just this noise, and it's enough to drive you crazy. um, I know with my group, my team, I went over this morning, and we were
Hmm.
talking about some assumptions that people might have about the market, or an agent might have about the market.
Right.
And that's where I want to get into with you some of the things you're doing. But once again, I went back to the data. I went back to the data. There's been 406 closings in the last 7 days in Hillsborough County,
Wow.
438 new listings, and 463 have gone pending.
Things move quick.
Okay. Pending, pending outranked the listings. There's a ton of inventory here because of new builds.
Hmm.
There's a ton of opportunity. And again, there's 400 closings in the last 7 days in this county. Yes, there's a lot of agents, but how many agents are actually working? And I think the reason that some agents might not be working and why those numbers might not be up is because people get in their head all this fear. To your
Right.
point, to your
Right.
point, this fear, and it holds people back. Instead of having that fear, I want to look for that solution. And that's why when you and I talk offline, man, we can move mountains. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so what I want to bring you on because I want that. I want your message and kind of what you're doing. I want to start that conversation. I want you to tell everybody, especially the agent community, what we're doing, what you're doing to adjust, and how you look at the current market situation.
Okay. I mean, first and foremost, especially in this market, you've got to be empathetic, right? You've got to understand that, listen, no matter what your message is and how confident you are in your message, people are afraid. People are very, very afraid. They really don't know what to do. And there's a ton of paralysis by analysis, right? You've got to understand that. You've got to, walk people through it. In the past, because where rates were, so for instance, you were talking about, active listings versus, pending, right? We know when rates were lower, it was super simple to just, grab a lead. Cool, you want this home, let's make an offer. They were gung ho, and there was really no skill, no art to it. Today, right, you've got to have the skills to understand and how to navigate and how to guide your buyers and your sellers through this process. It's not just a slam dunk. There are steps to this, and you've got to have the skill set to be able to navigate and take them from the first peg to the last peg.
It's more of a relational sale than a transactional sale. And I think you and I, we can go back to video recordings from long ago. You and
Hmm.
I have always, you and I, this is easy, because we've always done it this way.
Correct.
It's always about what their goals are, what are they trying to do? Because when you rehumanize this business, you go a lot further. You're actually building a relationship and becoming a resource for somebody by understanding what their needs are, what their goals are. Maybe it's the right time for them, maybe it's not. And if they ask you straight out, quite frankly,
Correct.
being honest is important.
Well, I mean, at this point, right? With people that I interact with, right? I'm more of a real estate advisor rather than a real estate agent, right? Because some of these the process in and of itself, it's taking a lot longer, right? People need to have some security, some understanding. Hey, listen, you know, ask, you know, your pastor, your I mean, like, people are going through a lot of anxiety, and you've got to try your best to, like I said, help them navigate and get the right information. So if someone's watching the news, right, they're going to give me a call. Hey, look, I just saw on the news. You got to listen to what they're saying and then say, okay, cool. Listen, that's great. However, right, I hear you because people want to be heard. I hear you, but let me show you what's happening on our level, in our market, in this county that you're looking in, because it's also, county specific. So showing them the data, letting them absorb that, and allowing them to make sense of it first really helps long term, where in the midst of it they don't have a panic attack again, and start feeling that anxiety. We don't want them to feel anxiety, we want them to feel anticipation. Let's understand what's going to happen so that we can put a game plan in place so that we can successfully execute that game plan.
Execute the game plan based off of their goals.
Correct.
Yeah. That's what's really, really important.
And level setting the right expectation.
So as far as real estate goes, though, okay, so we know who you are. You are the advisor. You are the helper. You are the person that wants to really I go back to the word humanize the business. Right. Be empathetic. Everything you just said. Like, I'm just kind of narrowing it down into one little shell. But then what? Right? You can say that all day long, and you can sit in your home or in your home office or in your office. And if the deals don't come in, the deals don't come in, and you have a family to feed, and and there's a lot of transaction being made. How are you inserting yourself into the market to say, hey, I'm probably your best choice because I have the experience. I'm empathetic. I'm human. I listen to you. I listen to your goals. How do you get those people? Like, how are you putting that message out there, and how are you getting more people to work with?
Okay. So, we've always been referral sphere centric, right? That's always been, a big chunk of what it is that we do. We've had to add, other lead sources, that it's something that, we're growing into, and working that muscle to navigate and work successfully. When you have a referral, right, it's from a past client or sphere, it's easy because you're referred to us by someone that already knows us, likes us, and trusts us, right? I've got to establish that with someone that knows nothing about me, right? So at the end of the day, it's what I have to offer that person, right? How I'm speaking to that person, how I'm trying to quickly understand or get an idea of what that person is looking for so that I can start building trust with them so that they can start opening up and we can have a conversation at the very least. And again, people assume that conversations are fruitless. They're not. When we used to do home buyer workshops, one of the things that we found, and the reason we continued to do them, was what we noticed was people that came to the event, I would say maybe 10% actually transacted, right? But after every workshop we had an influx of phone calls. Why? Because these people were going out into the community, explaining and sharing what they learned. And even though they weren't ready, people who were like, yes, I want that. And they would call. So, you know, in a nutshell, it's just having conversations. It's having conversations with people. If the message, if they didn't understand the message, once they share it, anyone who is, wanting, that type of experience is going to reach out and say, hey, listen, I want to have a conversation with you.
So we all know it's not about inbound phone calls. Obviously, that would be great. If our whole business was inbound phone calls, that'd be great. And over time, with different things that we're doing and things we have in place, that's the goal, right? But are you making outbound calls?
Yep, we're making outbound calls. We're staying in touch, obviously, with our past clients in Sphere. We are calling, expireds. We are calling for sale by owners. We are calling, just about anyone that we can get our hands on, because, once again, anyone who's raised their hand in the past is eventually going to raise their hand or need help in the future. What I want to, start doing for people that don't know me is, number one, introduce myself. Number two, see if there's anything at all that I can do for them now, right? And it doesn't have to be, you know, 10 grand, $100,000. It could be $5 grand, $10 grand, $1 million. It doesn't have to be, $1 million. It could be $100,000. It could be $1 million. buying or selling related. Hey, listen, need a good roofer? Let me connect you to my guy. Right? Hey, listen, are you do you have to replace your HVAC? Hey, listen, I just heard of a great program by the state that gives you rebates. You may want to call these guys and make sure that the person that's going to be installing your unit participates in this program.
Hmm.
Right? So again, it's being of value and thinking completely outside of the box, so that when this person is ready, you're top of mind.
So it's interesting you say that because you can think outside the box, and what I'm hearing is you want to be a resource to people. You want to be human. You want to be a resource. You want to provide them. You want to make connections. You want to connect people, and you
Correct.
want to be there for when they are ready.
Hmm.
Okay, great. What are you doing? So here's where a lot of people, I think, a lot of agents fail.
Okay.
Okay, um, let me grab one here. Just random, grab a card. Okay, let's just say I grab a one of these business cards. Okay, whatever. Okay.
Yep.
And I grab the business card or I put them in my phone and better yet, I put them in my phone. That's the biggest problem, right? It's lost in Never Land. Okay. What are you doing to get those people from the time you meet them to, to be, to continually remind them you're a resource?
So number one, you've got to have, I don't care if it's an Excel spreadsheet, the CRM that your agency provides, but you've got to put this information somewhere because it just can't live in your head or
So
on
that's
your
a
phone.
habit. That's a habit, right?
Yep.
That's a daily lifestyle, really.
You have to, right? You got to put them into the CRM. You've got to identify them and tag them, and you got to have some sort of game plan to communicate with them on a regular basis.
Okay. And it's easy to communicate to people like that if you're a resource and you're not just a salesperson.
Exactly. Right?
Okay.
Give them a reason to want to open up your emails. Give them a reason to look at your text. Give them a reason to take your call when you're just calling up and say, "Hey, listen, just following up as I promised. Is there anything I can do for you? Oh, by the way, did you get that last email? Was that helpful?"
Hmm.
We got to get
So,
back to those little things.
well, but here, where's the biggest mistake agents make there when they send something that give them a reason, that when they give them something but it's not a reason? Tell me that. What's your opinion?
Well, just like any message, sometimes, hey, listen, so for instance, right? If you send me an email that says, "Hey, listen, Costco has a discount on tires today for 150 bucks." Well, if I'm not in the market for tires, I don't really care, right? It wasn't useful, right? So you're trying different things to see, hey, listen, let me see what fits, let me see what's relevant. But hopefully, once again, I give you enough variety so that when you do need something, be like, hey, listen, you know what? Let me pick up the phone. Let me call Tom. Let me see if he has something for me. Right. And that's really, you know, it takes a lot of work, but that's who you want to be. You want to be your go-to for everything for your clients, right? Because once again, when they're asked, hey, listen, like, where do you get all of this information from? And they drop your name, like I mentioned before, what's going to happen? That ripple effect. Hey, I want that. I want that relationship. I want that connection. Right. I don't want to be an orphaned buyer or an orphaned seller, which means I did a transaction with someone, they were cool. I've never heard from them again.
How do you segment your data to make it relevant per bucket, per group of clients?
Um, to be honest, we're figuring all that out.
No,
Right. I'm not
that's what I was
perfect.
hoping you'd say. That's what I
Yeah,
was
I
hoping.
am not perfect. We're trying to figure this out as we go along. I'm trying to find a rhythm. I'm trying to find a cadence. What I'm doing is saying, hey, listen, I'm going to call 20 for sale by owners. I'm going to call 20 expireds. I'm going to call 20 people in my sphere. And I'm just trying this out, guys. I'm not perfect. right?
No, but
I need to figure out what works for me, and once something works, okay, then I'm going to double down on it. But this is all new to me,
it's
right?
really interesting. And so that's the message today. I really do believe that there is Fidel's on with us. We're going to bring him on here.
Sure.
Fidel. There he
What's going
is.
on, brother?
I dream of Jeannie.
So I had a bad hair day, guys. My bad.
Always got to bring up the hair stuff to me and Desi, dude.
Sorry, bro. Can't relate, bro.
Come on.
I've got the get up and go look.
Hey, man, there's pros and cons to everything,
That's right,
brother?
that is
It's
right.
just the way it works. That's it's a burden.
Yep.
Can be a burden.
That's really funny. So Desi, we were just catching up with Desi, and Desi was telling us about how obviously humanize the business, be empathetic. A lot of people have anxiety. Everything we talk about, Fidel. A lot of people are worried about the market.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things, and so what I was just getting into, to recap for anybody who's just now joining or anybody that's watching the recording, what I was just now getting into was, what are you doing about it? Like, how are you structuring your day to put yourself out there, to be resourceful, to be a resource for people? And he said, to be honest, we're reinventing ourselves right now. We're actually making 20 calls here, 20 calls there. And that's what's most interesting. Every agent out there, as far as I'm concerned, goes through this quarterly, every 6 months, every year, and definitely every market change. And right now we're in a market change, guys.
Mhm.
And so where can we best be a resource, and how do we stand out amongst the rest of our peers? Even though we're collaborative, we're still competitive, but
Mhm.
how do we stand out? How do we say, hey, we're the resource, we can help you the best because of this, and this, and we actually care? So that's what we're getting into right now. What CRM do you use, Desi?
We're using Follow Up Boss.
Perfect. Are you set
we
up?
really. Mhm.
Are you set up in Follow Up Boss, like with all your campaigns right now? Or are you working on that?
Everything's been a work in progress, right? Because once again, usually all it took was a phone call. Now it's taking a phone call and maybe a text, a phone call, email, text. I mean, the amount of touches has gone up exponentially. Within 2 or 3 calls, cool, great. You at least got someone to pick up the phone. I mean, some of these are taking 17, 18 calls before they'll even acknowledge you.
Yeah.
Well, because I think they're
Makes
getting hit.
sense.
They're getting hit on all angles, right?
Right. But again, it's what do you have to offer? Right? Why should they speak to me? And I'm
Right.
asking questions like, hey, listen, has anyone, actually stopped and done, a buyer orientation with you? Right? Do you understand what it takes, to compete in this market? Do you understand the numbers? Right? So it's not just me, it's also my lending partners, right? Because they need to understand and they need to see, hey, listen, what is it going to look like if I wait? Right? If right now I'm doing what a good amount of the buyer population is doing and saying, I'm going to wait till rates go down, right? They're not understanding and they're not able to see how that's going to impact them, right? We know it. We just have to do a better job of illustrating it and breaking it down in its most simple forms to share with them so that they can see what it is that is coming out of our mouth constantly, but in their mind's eye, it just doesn't make sense, right? They can't connect those dots, and we know what's coming.
What's coming, Desi?
Well, and I have this conversation on a daily basis. What's going to wind up happening is when rates, okay, let me start with people who are purchasing now. People who are purchasing now, yes, rates are high. the payment, the payment is causing people a lot of anxiety, but they are going to have relief in the future when interest rates drop, because we all know that interest rates are going to go back down. Right? Cool. So now let's say you buy, and again, this is part of what we're doing. Let's just say you bought a $300,000 home today, and your payment was, just for argument's sake, I'm throwing numbers, not that this is accurate at all, but let's just say your payment was $2,500, right? Well, when rates drop, right, and let's just say you're now paying $2,200, you're going to get that relief, right? And you can be like, oh wow, I was paying 25, I'm paying 22. This is a lot more comfortable and doable, right? Cool. Now let's fast forward. Now let's take someone who was waiting for rates to drop, and now that same $300,000 home is more affordable based on the rate. But guess what? You and
Price of the
everyone
house.
else, have been waiting, and now what are we getting into? Bidding wars all over again, right? Prices of homes going up. So now rather than paying 300, now you're paying 375. And not only are you paying 375, where's your relief? There is no relief. Rates already dropped. So let's just say you get it at a 5%. Where's the relief? Now you're stuck with that payment.
Yeah, and I think the only thing here is there's a lot of fortune telling, right?
There is.
Because we're seeing it might be regional as well, because we're seeing what's happening in the growth here in Florida, for example, with the building. It's causing everything to come down a little because there's so much building. The good news is there's so much building and there's so much opportunity. There's so much inventory. It's insane how much inventory. So we don't have that gridlock that we used to talk about. We don't have it, meaning we don't have somebody afraid to move within Florida. We don't have it. They can sell and they can buy. The only thing that's stopping them now is the fact that they probably have a 2.9% rate.
Correct.
So you got to almost find those people that don't have the 2.9% rate. Hopefully they raise their hand. They want to sell. Hopefully they want to buy. And some of these builder incentives are just out of this world. But Fidel and I talk about this on a regular basis. Like he'll tell you, Fidel.
Yep.
I'd love to know your opinion on what would make the rates go down, Fidel.
That's about a $10 trillion question, guys. And if I really, really had that, I'd be on a pretty nice yacht in the Caribbean, just hanging, chilling. But the reality is the problem is this: inflation is still a thing. So as long as inflation is there, the Fed is the two mandates the Fed has is full employment, so a good economy, and to make sure inflation doesn't get out of control.
Uh-huh.
And employment is good right now still, right? It's deteriorating a bit, but this is cycles, just like anything, everything has a cycle. So the Fed at this point is still saying, hey, we're going to stick here because the inflation is sticky. It's still there. And what makes that change is hard to say. But if you listen to Powell, and he said it the whole time through, is higher for longer. So we do anticipate that this will stick. Now, people had these metrics saying, hey, it's going to be May of this year, or this happens in July. And we've outkicked our coverage on every one of them. We were offsides. We're completely offsides. So this whole narrative of date, or what is it, marry the house, date the rate, or whatever it ended up being, it ended up backfiring on some people because they had the expectation that they'd be able to refinance now. And this is where projections and predictions are really difficult to operate with. And I really like to break it down to right here, right now, because you got to be there. You got to be comfortable with that. If that sticks, I think that's the messaging we should be kind of correlating to the client. It's like, listen, we're going to pay to live, right? Whether it's rent or whether it's a mortgage, we're going to pay to rent, to live. We have to. So don't get so fixated on, the interest rates are still historically, believe it or not, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be kind of funny because if you take a pulse of our industry, people would laugh at you. They're still low. I know.
That's
But
right.
when you look at look at the 10,000-year history of recorded human history, rates are still low. Now I get it. It's funny for me to say that, or like people are like going to turn upside down, like you know how dogs do. But it's the reality. It's the reality, right? It's so
So Fidel,
so.
before you jumped on,
Mhm,
I mentioned something, and it's gonna tie into this.
mhm.
I was saying that I always listened and was around older people, when
Yep,
they talked, and so in relation to that, you have people that bought in the 70s are like, what are these kids talking about? Like my rate
I
was
know,
20%.
and we were
Like
happy.
I'd kill for a 7%. I
I know.
personally when I bought my first house, we were like it was like 8-9%. That was
Yep,
normal.
yep.
So
Now
sorry, go ahead.
there's some good things to this, Ro. Okay, so people villainize rates going higher, but a healthy economy has higher rates. A healthy market has higher rates, and why? So if we go to the ZERP, is what they call it, right? We've lived that since probably 2011 through, you know, I would say probably end of 21. We lived through where everything was basically zero. And when you had debt then, it was like you really don't have interest. It's just principal. Like, I mean, for sake of looking at the numbers, we've never seen this in history. In history, recorded human history, we haven't seen this. So along with that, what were you getting it from your bank? What were you getting from CDs? 0, 0.1,
Yeah.
1% max, not even.
Hmm.
So now what are you getting from your CDs? I was sitting on the beach hanging out with some of my kids' teammates, family members, and they were talking about like, this lady was like, hey, yeah, I just picked up a CD for 6.25. I'm like, wow. So you're actually getting some return on your money. So you got to think of it in that perspective of saying, okay, so we went from we still are a debt nation, okay, debtor. And it's not even just the US, frankly, it's the whole globe. We're addicted to debt. So, like, for example, the Japanese culture is very much about saving, 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 saving. Well, they get like no save, like the banks don't pay any interest. Here, they do right now. So it's kind of changed the equilibrium a little bit and making maybe people more savers, which is a good thing for our economy. So, like, it's like a yin and the yang on why rates are kind of hurt us on one end. But I'm telling you what, if anybody is in their later years, they love it because they're taking their risk way down and collecting a return. So it is impossible to know what's going to happen
Yeah.
besides the fact that that, listen, we need a place to live, and that has a price tag associated with regardless. And there is a price of comfort, a price of there's a price of knowing certainty where you're going to be.
Correct.
And that is really what it comes down to. There's
Tell
a
me
price.
likey. Tell me what wingy.
Well, the other thing, just to add on to that, Fidel, as well, right? And what people need to understand is, especially on the commercial front. So first and foremost, I always tell people, hey, listen, at the end of the day, everyone in this country pays a mortgage. Oh no, I pay rent. No, 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 no. You pay a mortgage. It's just not yours. That you're paying someone else's mortgage.
Touche,
So
salesman. Where's that one from Dodgeball? Touche.
so we all pay a mortgage. You just need to decide
Yeah,
whether or not you want it to be yours. And what people
correct.
aren't understanding is, especially let's just say, again, I grew up in New York City, tenement buildings, so on and so forth. Right?
Right.
They don't take out 30-year loans. Right? These are
Mhm.
commercial loans,
Yep.
different terms, so on and so forth. So for these guys that took out these loans, because they're always, pulling out equity. That's the name of the
Mhm.
game.
Yep.
So for these guys that were at let's just say 5%, right? When that term ends and they're now paying 7% and that monthly payment goes up, you think they're paying that? You
I
are.
know.
So when people say, hey, listen, I don't understand, like, why is my landlord, can't speak for all, but for most, listen, that's just the cost. And for
Yep.
some of them, it may even just be a break even.
Mhm.
So, what's, when people ask me, hey, well, what are my options? What would you recommend? I say, hey, listen, would you like to have a consistent, growth, of equity and a consistent payment? Or do you want that flipped where your payment is completely inconsistent and you have zero growth? That's an X.
Or at least zero opportunity for growth.
Right.
Right.
Because we don't know what the equitable situation is going to be. Over time it will be, but
we know it's certainty, right? It's
Exactly.
certainty of knowing, we know what happens. So if growth continues, then taxes continue going up. So we know that there's going to be a margin that keeps kind of going. I thought, when we talk to clients, we'll say, hey, listen, I can't control the insurance and the tax part. They're going to get theirs. Trust me. They always get theirs.
Right.
But what we know is your principal and interest, which is the meat and potatoes and just about everything about it, is your principal and interest, which is your home. So that certainty. Now, when it comes to renting, and here's specifically when it comes to renting, maybe not from like a mom and pop, say like, an investor who is that. When you're renting from entities like apartment complexes, or, a lot of the last few years, 3 years, we've had a lot of aggregation of, funds buying property. They do it based on algorithms. And I was having this thought this morning, algorithms, they're not always right. And I say that is because I watch the kind of the rental occupancy as well as part of my metrics of the just kind of getting a pulse of the market. And there's a lot of these places with a lot of opening, but they won't lower it. And I know why they're not lowering it. It's because they're trying to make sure that, that they don't do it and they shoot themselves in the foot. Maybe it's a blip. But, at a certain point, they're going to have to, because commercial valuation is all based on what is this property creating in revenue, right?
Well,
What's the cash flow?
It's going to start with the behind the scenes discounting first, right?
Yeah.
So for instance,
3 months,
the
sign
rebates,
up 3 months or 2 months, right?
Yeah,
Stuff
6 months
that.
free, 6 months free, free build out. If it's commercial, if it's a apartment, sign 12 months, get 2 months free or 1 month free or something. Yeah, it's going to start there. And so when you start to see that, then you can see the trend where it's going. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. But builders are doing it, right?
That's a big thing right now.
Yeah, builders are giving a lot of incentive because they don't want to lower the price of the home.
Correct.
Right, because they don't want to bring the market down. So it's smart, but that's the best way to get the best rate right now, I think, because it's free money. I mean, they're giving you the money.
100%.
So
I mean, they're making it affordable.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, they're helping the affordability at least.
They're bringing it,
making it affordable. Strong words.
I know, touche. But to one man, it could be trash. To another, it could be treasure. So it's like so you're never gonna have a dead set. That's what it is. I think it's very personal more than ever right now.
100%.
I mean, like a client comes through. It's a very personalized and I think. Actually, I know this to be a fact. I know that we are all, and I mean all you out there that will watch this or watching now or are going to watch this, we're all going to benefit by this. I posted this thing yesterday. What was it, Tom, that I posted about if you survive the temporary, you'll meet another version of yourself. So we're in a temporary setback, we might say. If you took the pulse of, loan originators and realtors, everybody, just even inspectors, title agents, anybody connected to this industry, because we're all one. I like to think it's a circular, kind of thing. It's not like, oh, we're real estate and we're in this, we're that. No, we're doing this together because that's how this moves. We're all going to be better by this, because I think that over the last, no, I don't think, I remove that. I know, and I'll point at myself, a thumb pointer, not a finger pointer, is we got awfully comfortable over the last 3 years.
Agents and people.
Agents and loan originators, people, everybody.
Everyone. Consumers did. Agents did. Everybody.
Yep. Especially, I would say, especially agents and loan officers, mortgage. Because because it was just so easy. it was, it wasn't easy for the client sometimes. And I always said, people look at it like, oh, it must be so great. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's really hard telling people no, no, no for 20 times when they're putting offers in. It kind of stinks for them. It's bad. But I think we're all going to learn because we lost a bit of the human touch, I believe.
That's where Desi started. That's where Desi started the whole thing. He said,
See, Desi, we're brothers. See, I wasn't even listening.
We need to bring it in. We need to bring it in, humanize, empathetic.
You got to humanize it.
Yeah, this is about people, right? At the end of the day, we're in the people. I always say this to my team, anybody who will listen to me, I'm blue in the face. We are in the people business. We're in the people business. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's actually taking care of humans, our fellow humans, and help them guide through a decision that is pretty difficult and pretty stressful right now.
Well, it's earning our keep now. It's a little bit different than putting a sign in the yard and selling something. It's actually having that conversation that we've always had. All three of us have always had that human conversation. We've never been a transactional type, get a lead, turn around, show a house, sell it, done.
Yeah.
We always bring the personality into it and the humanize it. So, this conversation is interesting. It's we're bringing back Top Agent Podcast because we want to be a resource to agents, and that's what this is. But then we get into the same conversation that everybody's having right now: the market, and we kind of did that to ourselves. But now it's like, how can we turn the last few minutes of this or the last part of the conversation into what can we do better on a daily basis? What kind of tools are you using? What are things that, we already talked about Follow Up Boss a little bit. We talked about you're tweaking it, you're working on it, you're calling now, some old expired, some old FSBOs. What can we do to turn that on its head? Like what else can we do?
So here's something that I, from personal experience, right? And it's something that I'm trying to figure out how to do it playfully, but it's a very serious topic, right? And it's for anyone who's a son, nephew, so on and so forth. One of the things in terms of an item of value, one of the things that we bring and like to present to our clients is, let's talk about estate planning, right? And most of them like, yeah, but that's morbid and this and that. And it's just like, okay, well, what if I told you that the reason I want to talk to you about estate planning, because it's not for you.
Right.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, if your grandparent is still alive, if your parents are still alive, more than likely, you're going to be making arrangements for them. Are you ready for that? Because guess what? When my grandmother passed, we were kind of, but not, right? When my mother passed, we were. Why? Because we went through it with my grandmother.
Yeah.
Right. So again, morbid, but it's a fact.
It's necessary, right?
It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So why not be prepared for it? Why not understand some basics of it? And why not at least have some discussion and put some parameters around it so that the people that are left making these decisions have less stress? So if you want to talk about a value add, of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is. I mean, again, we're not even going to get into the details of it, but that's when ugly really rears its head. But once you have things written and everyone understands that this is what's going to happen, it just makes that process so much easier. And that's what we want people to understand and start talking about. Let's talk about the inevitable. Let's put some things in place to help alleviate what's going to be a very, very hard and stressful time.
Right.
So what I'm hearing, if I'm unpacking this a little bit, I get the concept. I do understand it. But what I'm hearing you say is, I see there's a need. Okay. That people aren't not everybody's paying attention to. I see there's a need. I want to study it and be a steward and be a knowledge bank, a knowledge broker for people. Okay. Again, I want to be a resource. And I want to be able to help people that are going to be in that situation. Somehow I got to get to those people and help them and let them know that I'm a resource. Okay. It's not a sales position. It's a resource position. It's not a million agents that know how to do this. It's not a million agents that'll ever take time to do this at all. You're like the 1% of the 1%. Okay. And that's what stands out and makes you different. And that's why we had you on the show, because Fidel and I had a conversation recently, and it was like, what makes you stand out? Everybody's an agent. Everybody's an agent. Everybody's brother, everybody's sister, part-time, full-time, whatever. Everybody's an agent. There's 200,000 agents they're saying they're going to leave because of the shift in the market. Bye. See you later. But the agents that need to be here, how can we all get better for our clients? Yeah. And Desi just gave you one. Gave you one. If you really want to open up another pillar to your business, start studying estate planning.
And that goes right back to that same, concept that he opened up this podcast with, and that I just, kind of echoed for him as well, is it's the human element.
It is.
We're preparing for something that humans, like all species, don't get me wrong, but we're the ones that are a little bit more complicated, right? We have these things that we can't carry with us to the other side, and it's important to set up our family to, it's already stressful enough. Like Desi mentioned it, the ugliest of the ugly comes out when the parents specifically die, right? And then the siblings have to figure out how they're gonna disperse this, and let's the hope. Hopefully they do have something to give you, but if they do, and there's some, even if it's not even seems like a substantial amount, it gets a little nasty, and it's like, why not be ahead of it and say, I made the decision. It's not like you're blaming Jimmy or Susie because they made this kind of decision. They're doing this, that, and that. Is make the decision ahead of time, and therefore they know that at least you're going to try to keep the unity of the family without having to fight about finances. Unfortunately, that's kind of what happens no matter how close the families are. I mean, per firsthand experience, on that, it's not a pretty sight. It's interesting to go through.
Well, the reason I phrase it that way is because, again, no one thinks about their mortality when they're young.
Yeah.
Right. I've got time for that.
Yeah.
Right. So when you put it in perspective and they start talking about and discussing their parents, because that's a little more relatable for them. Oh, crap. Yeah, you're right. That's when they start thinking about themselves.
Right.
It's a really
well, what
good point.
if?
It's a really
right. Well, what if?
Well,
right?
I'm thinking about myself, and I'm sitting here going, okay.
Right. So, Tom, and
what am I doing to be
perfect
responsible?
example. Right. Tom, who's the primary breadwinner in your home?
I am.
Okay. God forbid something happens to you. What happens to your family? Right? That's why we have insurance. That's why there's things like life insurance. That's why these things are in place. Like, guys, don't wait for an accident to say, yeah, I want to get that. It's not going to be there. Let's anticipate. Let's prepare for that. Right. Because, again, we all own vehicles. Right. What's one of the, outside of your monthly payment, what's one of the other payments that you make? Insurance
payment. Yeah.
And you don't bat an eye, but you don't insure yourself. How backwards is that? That makes no sense.
It's really interesting. It's really backwards. And
so again, it's
because we're forced there. Yeah, I think that's because we're forced placed into having auto insurance if we want to be on the road. But nobody's out there saying, hey, Desi, hey, Tom, hey, Fidel, it's pretty important to have insurance. It's pretty important to have these end of, for that hopefully it doesn't happen. You have an accident, and next thing you know, you're either maybe incapacitated or gone.
Right.
What's your family do?
Right.
And we don't like to think about it. You're right. It's not sexy to think about.
It's one of those so uncomfortable. I want to shut this podcast down. I'm uncomfortable about it because I know myself. Hold on, I know myself that I'm not as prepared as I need to be, and I really need to talk to somebody that can help me. Right.
And I just touched the nerve, didn't I?
Oh yeah, and that's what's great about this conversation, because now let's go to affordability. Okay. Someone once told me when people start complaining about saying, I'm going to go get a corporate job. I'm going to get out of real estate because I'm going to go get a corporate job because they have benefits. One of the big guys, I don't know who it was. It might've been Reese or Kinder or someone like that. They said, all insurance is a bill. It's an equation. Okay.
Mhm.
Meaning health, let's go health insurance wise. Okay. And it really hit home with me because at the end of the day, it's just a financial number. Okay. So let's say your health insurance is $1,000 a month. In our business, what does it take to pay that for a year? Think about that. It sounds really rough at $1,000 a month, but it sounds really attainable in our business at $12,000 a year.
Mhm.
Right. So how do we help people and reframe some things and make sure that, affordability means a lot of things. Are you protecting your
Correct.
family? Life
Mhm.
insurance. Are you protecting your family? House insurance. Are you protecting your family? Car insurance, health insurance, right? You have all these insurances that you got to make sure you have. And that there is a cost to that. That is a bill. That is a bill you have to consider when you are considering a home. And that's why interest rates are causing everybody to be in an uproar because they're so used to living a certain way.
Correct.
So it's all related. But
It
when you
is.
can paint that picture or help somebody see the picture,
Yes.
the whole picture.
And I'll give you an example, right? So, I'm not going to use the word what makes me good, or what makes me effective is that when I came into this industry, there were very few Spanish speaking professionals in the industry. So, you know, I pride myself in giving customer service, client service. So I made it a point to understand all of the roles, right? So all of the questions, and understand, why does the loan officer ask for this information? What does this mean? You know, translating every single detail that the inspector is talking about the home, translating all the paperwork, when we're sitting in front of the attorney, you know, because of the service that I wanted to give, I understood all that, right? And I can help you understand, the pitfalls of, especially, questions that people don't ask, right?
Mhm.
And those are the things that we start with. Hey, listen, understand the things that people don't think about and don't ask, because yes, we're in an environment, we're in a culture that is client service, right? Client service these days is, hey, you asked for something, I gave it to you. If you didn't understand your options, that's
Fast
your
food.
problem,
It's
right?
fast
That's
food.
exactly.
It's fast
And
food
bro,
treatment, right?
and it's funny you mentioned that, because anyone who knows me, I'd hope that someone that knows me is on here right now. They know that I use the same analogy every single time. We all know how to order a McDonald's on this podcast right now, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
a little bit more complicated than a number 6 with cheese, right? It's a little.
But check it out, Fidel. Here's where I'm going with it. So if you go to the drive-through and you say, "Hey, I want a hamburger," and you unwrap it and you say, "Where's the cheese?" Would you ask for?
Right.
You ask for a hamburger,
Yeah.
not a cheeseburger.
Right.
But in your mind, it's the same thing.
Right.
Right? My job is to say, hey, Fidel, if all you know is a cheeseburger, guess what? You can add lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, onions. I give you your options.
Can I get
So
some
that,
jalapenos on there? No.
hey,
With
listen,
with that
exactly.
headset, Desi, I think you're working at the drive-through right now.
Exactly. You know what I mean? But that's how I see myself. That's how I see myself bringing value.
Hey,
Right?
Desi, can I get a number one with the Coke, please?
You need a Diet Coke, buddy.
No, Diet Coke's bad for you. Thanks.
You
Thanks,
need the
guys.
small, not
Okay, well,
large.
I'm out.
He's gone.
But
Soldier gone.
exactly. But again, I think my job is to give you options that you wouldn't have considered, and someone that doesn't have the experience that I have wouldn't know to say, hey, listen, have you considered this? Because for me, an educated consumer is the best consumer to work with, because you don't have any kind of doubt or fear when you're making a decision. You're making it based on information. You're making it based on fact.
Right. Love that. That's exactly, I think, what it comes down to, the him and haw of projections, or what's happening, or what's going to, should I not, fear or greed mongering, all this stuff. At the end of the day, it comes down to,
I can tell you what's happening now.
separate it, look at it what it is right now.
Exactly.
Is it the right for you? And there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people where it is, and maybe some not. and it's okay. But it starts with the conversation, and
Yeah.
like kind of figuring out what you want on your burger.
Exactly.
Okay, so fellas, let's wrap this up. We got 5 minutes. 5
Gotcha.
All
minutes.
right.
Let's talk about the tools that agents can use to get to people to help them understand that we are a resource. We're not a transactional person. We are a resource. And how do we do it? Let's brainstorm.
So there's this thing, it's called Google, right? And if you Google, but think about this.
I haven't heard of it.
No, the Google.
Sounds fake.
Google.
The Google machine.
Hey, have you seen that thing with the Italian grandma? Hey Google, right? So if you go to Google and you just type, buyer concerns or concerns buyers have, right? Start there. Start speaking to that. Start being an expert on that, right? It's not an objection anymore. It's a fact. And if you don't know how to speak to it and you're speaking beyond it and you're just completely ignoring this person's legitimate concern, then you're the problem, not them.
Yeah.
So how? So you Google it. So that's a tip. That's a trick, guys.
So you
Go
educate
Google
yourself.
something.
Like, hey, listen, when that objection happens, hey, listen, how do you listen, absorb it, right? Repeat it. Hey, so this is your concern, right? Okay. In my experience or the information that I have that I'd like to share with you, here's what I'm seeing. Right.
Okay.
Listen.
So then what?
Right. So it's giving them the information that they need to
And
make
how?
How?
That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to pull out the how.
Sometimes it's gonna so sometimes it's even gonna take your lender, right? It's hey, listen, here are the numbers. Let's sit with the lender so that we can analyze these numbers, because you've got to understand what is the root cause of their concern. Is it the numbers? Is it the price point? Is the market going to crash? So you may need the other tools in your tool chest to help you get this person to where they need to be, not where you want them to be.
All right, rewind just a hair.
Okay.
You answered the question exactly how I asked it. So I appreciate that. That's the how. That is a how. But
Right.
what is the vehicle? What is the vehicle to spread our message better? What is it that one thing that we can say that if an agent's watching, when an agent watches, and they say, you know what, we're going through the same thing, we feel the same way, we understand, we got to be empathetic, we got to be personal, we got to be a resource, we got to be human. What's that one thing that we can do? How do we get it to the public?
So there's this other device. It's called the phone.
I get that.
And when you hit this, basically listen, like I told you, I'm learning as I go along. Right.
I know, but what resources are we using now? We have Follow Up Boss. Are you doing newsletters? Are we doing video? I'm doing
video. Yep.
Okay.
I'm definitely doing video. Right. Anything that I learn new, I want to share it.
Perfect.
Right. Again, I want people to understand I'm not perfect. I'm learning as I go along. And as I discover something new, I'm going to share it with you. I have.
So something that I'm kind of getting off of Desi is what he's saying, and he doesn't put it in these words. So forgive me if I put words in your mouth, but is stop selling and start educating. And what I mean by that is that just say I'll get out there and say, hey, look at this. To start talking to people like humans, not and like somebody like you would talk to your grandma. Educate them, whether because they don't know. We do this for a living. They don't.
How do we get to more people?
Social media, man, like what we're doing right now. We're talking to the masses. Now, whether somebody decides to take the time to invest in it or not, we are setting that out there. We're sending it to the universe. So if you're an agent out there, start talking to your people. And it's more now than probably ever, communicating via video is the premier way to do it, because right now people have some fears and doubts in their mind and their heart and their soul. And when they catch that video, when they catch Desi talking about, hey, listen, we're going to have a really honest conversation. We're going to talk through this instead of, Well, if they call Desi, they're going to feel like they're going to have to be pressured to buy something tomorrow. No, let's have that
Right.
dialogue.
Yeah, make yourself
Well,
approachable, right?
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
agree with that. Make yourself approachable. Let people know I'm a resource. So again, another conversation we've had, the group, the team, our last couple of days is don't be too forward optimistic salesy used car salesman. Like, hey guys, we're going to show you this open house today, and this is why this house is number one, and da da da. Right? You can't be that guy. You just can't. Nobody wants that.
Mhm.
But you also can't be Debbie Downer.
Correct.
Right? You can't be, whoa, I don't know. Because the reality is there's homes being sold every day. There's a lot of people moving for a lot of reasons, or more than just interest rates. It doesn't matter if you have a 2.9 and you're going to go to a 7.9. It really doesn't matter if you're moving from one state to another because it makes sense for your lifestyle. There's so many different reasons people move. My goal is to try to solve or figure out how to talk to more people that are in need of this information, and then be a resource. And then, you know what? That's it. That's the job. There's no expectations. I'll give you the resources. We'll have a good conversation. I'll ask you some challenging questions probably.
Yeah.
And then you can answer them for yourself. And eventually one day that would be great. If you called me up and said, hey, I'd like you to represent us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I take this perspective from how Gary Vee just operates his business and just how he operates life is just give. And those who add value will receive value. And that's just what it comes down to. Now, over the last 3 years, that wasn't the case. You can fog up a mirror, get a license, and go find a mortgage or a home to sell. No problem. Now is the season in which the people who really invested in themselves, their education, their way of communicating, just built themselves to be able to correspond with the consumers and be like, hey, this is what's going on. I understand there's a lot of fear. I understand there's a lot of things changing, but we're here to listen to you because at the end of the day, it's all about how you feel, because feeling is how people buy. If they feel confident, they'll buy. If they don't, they won't. And it's not about selling them one way or the other. It's just talking to them. It's really pretty much that simple.
And actually something really funny, right? And I mentioned this, and Tom, the whole theme of this was talking to agents on how to do these things. Here's an idea. What if you approached an older agent in your office that's been doing this for 20, 30 years and asked them, hey, when rates were high, right, at 18%, what did you do to talk to and convince? Dude, they're sitting right in front of you. Right? Ask them. Someone who's retired or retired. Guys, these guys have done it before. Ask them, what did you do? Because I'm sure, yes, the message may not be exactly what we need, but there's definitely nuggets in there that you can use in today's market to help people either make sense of things or just calm their anxiety.
Yeah. And here's the wrap up thing. I do agree with that. I do agree. Start talking, like in the beginning of the podcast, you were talking about talking to your elders. That goes with agents too. And as we wrap it up, guys, I do got to say, what's great about this group here, because I know you guys both very well, nothing's changed for us. We've always been these people. We are just looking at the vehicle. I want to dissect and get better at finding the vehicle that works for me to get the message out there for people to say, hey, you know what? I definitely want to call Tom. I definitely want to call Desi. I definitely want to call Fidel, because they are a resource to me. Whether I'm ready now or later, they're a resource to me. Hey, thanks, Peter. Peter, we're going to have you on the show, brother. This Peter Chemo. Man, I met him in North Carolina. We were able to have a class together, and he is, I don't know. There's a lot of smart people out there, and when you come across someone like him, it's we definitely got to have him on the show for sure. So Peter, I'm gonna be reaching out to you. I think I already did. I sent you a message. But when you have resources like this, when you have people like Fidel, and you have people like Desi, and you have people like me, and we are here for you. Keep in mind, we've been doing this. We haven't changed who we are. We've been doing this the whole time, and this is who we are. And we're just looking at how to reach more people. So if you are a consumer watching this, we could use your help. We could definitely use your help. If you know anybody that's looking for some advice, whether it's now or later, please consider us. Give us a call.
Let's have a conversation.
That's it, boys.
And one last thing.
Oh, we got one
more
last
day.
thing. Mic drop.
You gotta make it, one more day. So Tom, you're reading this book, The Power of One More.
Yep.
And if you're an agent or a loan professional, and this doesn't even have to just tie to that. Make it one more day. Any person who is self-employed or an entrepreneur, don't think about making it for 10 years. Think about making it one more day. Just take one day at a time and keep building on it. And the power of just doing one more day, you might get through it.
That's it. Boys, this was freaking
There it is.
fantastic. We're out.